is recognizing the size of the senior population that is going to be continuing to drive and drive further and longer into their lifespan, and how do you sort of capture that particular market. So there's a lot of market force and research that is going to help sort of keep the momentum of how we sort of deal with this. But I think the task that we have specifically at NHTSA is trying to find the right regulatory framework so that we can continue the innovation of how we better protect and keep elder drivers, better able to manage a driving task, and whether it's the distraction guidelines that we're working on specifically as we're thinking about vehicle design and restraint design going forward. And Ford with the inflatable belt is a fantastic breakthrough, and there's other innovations that we're thinking about as well in terms of crash imminent braking systems that can actually will know who the driver is and can be able to apply brake forces in a way that mitigates the accident and mitigates the impact on a particular person's body type. So all of these things are sort of a mixture, but I think for us at NHTSA is trying to make sure that we keep the innovation going while we're trying to sort of rope the arena in a way that we know that we're going to get the right outcome. So that's sort of our perspective on it.
Interesting.
Well, I think I'd go back to the points that I made in my remarks. It's about prevention and mitigation. And I think that, to be clear, the things that are going to help older drivers are going to help all drivers. It's not just that older drivers have trouble with left-hand turns. Everyone has trouble with left-hand turns. It's just older drivers, it manifests more for them. And so I think when you look at prevention, it's about technology that I saw out at camp this afternoon. It's the lane departure warning systems. It's the oncoming traffic forward collision warning systems. It's about knowing when you can pass another car. So all of those things are going to help all drivers. They're just going to give older drivers a little bit of a leg up. But what we saw with mitigation is there are different issues for older occupants of the car, and that has to do with their fragility, and as they age, that things are happening to their bodies that we need to take into consideration. At the Safety Board, we've made recommendations for our youngest passengers to improve their crash protection in the event of an accident, making sure that children are in age and size appropriate restraints. And so I think the same has to be true as we think through our population. As was mentioned, everyone isn't the average male. And so we have to make sure that our occupant protection systems are designed in a way to protect all occupants, not just the average occupant.
Right, thank you.
I would suggest that the future of the car is really bright, and that we should combine two things. One is to use the technology we have to personalize that driver and passenger experience, so I know exactly who it is, what their typical driving behavior is, how much they weigh, and all the other things that we know we can put sensors in the vehicle for. The second part is I want to reinforce this. Cool design, but simple and elegant. And that way we attract everyone who's 18 and 20-something years old to see a vehicle that they really want, but also the 60, 70-year-old person sees a vehicle they want, but it's also something that they're really excited about driving, and it's also safer. Because of the new devices out there, because of the new information that we're about to see, a whole new wave of driver language is about to happen. New symbols, new metaphors. Friendly will hopefully go away as we move towards the autonomous vehicle. And I think that's the opportunity to innovate, but it's also the opportunity to be safe. And given the growth of the population, it's the opportunity for money.
I would just add, the most critical thing is that we're talking to the customers, right? I think as business enterprises, we all know the value of market research. Segmenting your customers, understanding what their wants and needs are, as well as understanding what their capabilities will be and are. And so if you combine all that's been said here with sound and effective and ongoing customer research, focus groups, broad-based, however the case may be, it really adds to the depth of understanding and can create very implementable solutions that can be used certainly across all age categories and no doubt with older drivers.
Well, thank you. I think I was really intrigued to hear and to learn about some of the unintended consequences that sometimes we see with technologies. And I was intrigued by what you said about driver education, that we need to re-educate. That seems to be something that we have had a tough time with, even when it comes to new drivers. We're still studying it, you know, decades and decades after we've been doing it. And I wonder how we will go about doing that re-education.
The literature is out, is still out, or the jury is still out on the benefits of lifelong driver education for older drivers. The literature seems to indicate that for younger drivers, it's certainly better. But for lifelong, for older drivers, it's not, you know, if anything, it's positive, but it's not clear. We need to create new ways of learning. So if you think about the way the rest of the consumer electronics industry teaches its users, those are the folks who have now entered the auto industry, and we call it ITS, is that they learn by doing, they learn by playing, they learn through exciting opportunities. You know, when you go to Apple, you go to the Genius Bar. When you go to Best Buy, you talk to the Geek Squad. We need those types of add-ons for the auto industry and the like to engage us, not in the classic sit down in the classroom and have it fed to you, but the actual manipulation, the fun, and it's not about my age, it's just like, hey, this is a new device, it's a new time to learn.
And actually, it's a really interesting thing. I had opportunity, actually it's up in Boston with Joe and some other folks talking about senior driver safety issues as well. And I know that in, I guess it's the AARP driver clinics, that they're, you know, sort of reaching out and talking to seniors about, you know, equipment that's on their car and how to get more familiar driving techniques and restraints, and making sure that actually the belt is actually properly in the right place, so it's supporting against your strongest bone structures, not necessarily riding up or riding in your midsection, all those sort of, you know, things that everybody needs to know. But I will tell you that in terms of from the education experience, it really does need to start at the point of purchase. I'll use, not to say this is Apple is a wonderful, you know, sort of, you know, panel here, but when Apple, you know, when they sell you a computer, they give you a thing called a one-on-one session where they actually teach you how to actually use the capabilities of the operating system and all of how you leverage those things. Do you remember everything from that particular meeting? No, but you remember some key takeaways that will help sort of build your working knowledge on how to sort of leverage what you buy. Unfortunately, when people buy cars, it's usually after 2 or 3 hours of negotiation. You fill out a whole bunch of paperwork. The only thing you want to do is just get out of it. And with these new systems on cars now, we're going to have to build these. And then now they're offering things at the dealerships for you to come back the next day or the next week for a sit down. And I'm fairly sure, purely anecdotally, the take rate is really low. So I think what we're going to have to do in terms of working with the buying experience and the dealers is when they're actually delivering the car to make it an experience that people want to sit down and begin, this is how you start your car, this is how you use the navigation system, this is how you use these particular things, at least for the point where whoever it is, senior driver, middle-aged driver, young driver, you have a foundation of what you need to know to be able to operate the car safely. And I think that experience is going to have to improve, and I think that's something that, frankly, the auto manufacturer and sales industry can learn from a lot of other folks that do it pretty well.
Fascinating. Anybody else have anything to offer about the driver education and re-education? We all have a role, I think, in educating the public about what the new options are for keeping seniors safe. But remember, seniors today don't really think of themselves as seniors. The definition of aging is really changing, and we do have a younger...
It's always 20 years older than whoever's talking about it. Yeah.
Exactly. But one thing we're finding at AAA when we really go to talk to seniors, people, they're not yet searching for the information. They're not really aware that these are things that they need to be thinking about as they age. And at AAA, we advocate that really people should start thinking about it in their 50s and think about their progression through those years as they approach those years where they can't drive safely. And I think that that is one of our challenges as well, to all of us play a role, I think, in figuring out how to speak to the public about what is out there to help them stay driving as long as safely possible. We don't have time because we are up against our time, but I know beyond safe driving years, certainly what happens to keep people mobile in those 7 to 10 years that they have after their safe driving years is a critical thing that we also have to consider. We are up against our time. I know that you will all join me in thanking our panel here today. Thank you.
Thank you.